Dr. Braun, who is a violence prevention specialist. He was listening to the coverage and he wanted to emphasize the difference between mass shootings and today's shooting.
And that was something that Eric Flack talked about specifically, right? That there's a clear difference between a mass shooting, a gunman that is intent on having a significant loss of life, versus an incident where it is calculated, it is measured, and it is directed at one or possibly even a couple of people. I believe we have Dr. Braun on the phone right now. Doc, what can you add to this?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's obviously a really difficult morning again, and my heart goes out to your community. I can add to it a couple of things. One, I think I'm not sure which of you as an anchor made a really good point earlier on to say it's vital that we make sure that we're very clear in the difference between a school attack, a planned targeted attack where the assailant is trying to harm and kill as many people as possible versus the type of violence that we potentially saw this morning. I can't speak to the actual incident this morning because obviously it's still unfolding, but it does seem like this was targeted specifically to one, maybe two people versus somebody that's planning a massive attack on a school. And the reason for me saying that that's vital is that at the moment what we have to do in terms of leadership and parents and community organizers is really manage fear because kids and parents are starting to be overwhelmed and terrified that schools are no longer a safe place for kids to be. And that's just simply not true.
So what do you suggest parents say to their students who or kids who might be terrified of going to school?
I think we have to turn these into opportunities to learn and grow together. And I think it's a really good time to discuss safety, awareness, speaking up. I think that we're not paying enough attention to the universal sign of violence, which is suffering. We're not looking out for those people that are having a really rough time or are disproportionately angry or carrying around a grievance that they can't let go of or numerous grievances. We're not looking out for those people that clearly need help, and we're not assisting them to get help. And when we actually do find that they need help, as a society, we've got to be comfortable that sometimes that help needs to be forced. We've historically always had ways that if somebody was so challenged that they were a harm to themselves or others, that we contained them and made sure that we got them the help that they needed. And I think that we have to be going back to that place. And obviously we want to redo that method, but we want to bring 2018 humanity and compassion to a method that previously worked.
Well, certainly a multi-pronged approach when kind of handling a situation like this. If you can speak specifically for parents, people respond to trauma differently. And for these teenagers, I can imagine they're going to have their own responses to that. What specifically should parents be looking out for over the next coming days?
Well, one of which is that this involves the high school. So even though as a male I often find even in a room full of highly sophisticated adults, I often find it difficult to say we're going to look out for things like in a female population in a high school, stress can make somebody miss their period. They may not menstruate, and they may think that they're pregnant. We've seen suicides happen across the country past shootings from all kinds of trauma. But so we want to actually go and we really want to make sure that parents know that they're having an uncomfortable discussion around what can stress do to you. Is it going to make you be closer as a family, or are we going to start isolating? We've got to know that parents should speak to their kids about that. This is a time where you may feel like you want to be by yourself, but we need to balance that out because I need to be able to check what you're doing on your social media or make sure that you're doing okay. I think this is a time for us also, for parents, not necessarily to try and find the right words, but the right activities. We tend to isolate ourselves, and so this is a time where parents can actually spend more time with their children, sort of use this as an opportunity to reconnect, use the fact that we as human beings seek comfort when we're around each other, And so this is actually a time where parents just being around and letting their kids know that they're okay sort of minimizes some of the fear. Now, of course, parents themselves are fearful. So what I'd be telling parents is we got to manage the fear that's been created through misinformation. We got to make sure that we are attending school safety meetings. I want to commend your state and Governor Hogan. Your state is really taking school safety incredibly seriously. Governor Hogan was very quick to respond after Parkland. He's made incredible amounts of resources available, and I think that as a parent, that's what I'd be wanting to hear. So what are we going to do about it? And lastly, on that point, I think that it's also what I think can, once parents manage their fear, sort of how that trickles down to children, is having a look at making sure that we're being smart with our decisions. So today I would see, even though it's tragic, and even though I really have huge compassion for the people that were hurt and injured today, what it shows me is it's a near miss. It shows me that it was an opportunity where we actually saw that a well-trained school resource officer was able to protect that school. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's vital, that we look across the country at looking at what's working. And I think that as a parent, what I would want to start doing is shifting from a knee-jerk response formula, like a fire, putting out a fire, to prevention. And I think that the easiest way I always make that clear for people is, we as sophisticated communities realize that we can't always be there to smell the smoke, or we may not pick it up quick enough. So what we did is we built smoke detectors. And I think that that's what society is needing. It's detecting low-level issues and disruptions, which are all good indicators that someone's not doing okay.
Yeah, and I think you made some very good points there. I think the parents, for them, this is going to be almost harder than for some of the students, because as a parent, I mean, you can say manage the fear, shift the focus toward prevention. You can say all these things, but some parents are having a really hard time listening to all these school shootings, sending their kids to school. Yeah. Is there any aside from the manage the fear? I mean, sometimes you hear that and you think that's sort of like a buzzword, sort of like a buzz phrase. Manage the fear, like don't quit thinking about it. Or is there any other techniques or things you can do to maybe sort of encourage parents in this situation to not face these fears? Are there any things that you do with some of your patients, for instance, to help them manage the fear in their own lives?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't see patients anymore. As a formerly trained psychologist, I turned my attention post 9/11 to the prevention of violence, and so really I see us as all being patients. The nation has had an incredible amount of trauma for a long time, and the pathway back for all of us from trauma is a wellness-based model. So you make a very good point, and thank you for reminding me something that I always tell audiences, which is, I never tell anybody to be calm or stay calm. I tell them to breathe. And in a similar way, what I tell parents is that we now have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. We make sure that we're doing okay. And there's no one magic ingredient to that, as we all know. It's staying in good health. It's making sure that you're talking through your own fears. It's taking those meditation classes and yoga and all the things that we know work to keep somebody well, so that you're in a good position to be able to help those that need it. And I know that this metaphor is used way too much and it's become a cliche, but literally it's the metaphor that gets used in terms of put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then you can help. We can't allow ourselves to be so overwhelmed that we can't take care of others.